There's a former university professor at Harvard, also a doctor at Mass General, Bingham, which is the Harvard facility, that got fired for quoting what Sweden did during COVID, which was to not have lockdowns, not force vaccines, not have social distancing, have people go about their lives. He was suggesting maybe that model ought to be somewhat copied. And for that, his career was ruined, except he was right. And we were wrong. There's a story out of Harvard, which is really discouraging. There's a former professor there, Martin Kulldorff, who has gone public talking about how he started writing about COVID all the way back in 2020, quoting data from around the world, especially the study out of Sweden, who had the best response to COVID in Europe. No lockdowns, no mandatory anything, and it was no big deal. Their economy was fine, unemployment stayed the same. People weren't committing suicide. They weren't locked out of their jobs. They weren't locked in their homes. Sweden sort of went along with their business, and it was all systems go. Some people had the flu, called COVID. All he was doing was quoting what they were doing. I mean, he literally said, look at Sweden. What are we doing? This is insane. And then he started quoting a similar study out of Stanford. And what did they do to him? Well, first he got suspended. Then he got kicked out. Then he got fired from his hospital position at Mass General Brigham, which is the hospital connected to Harvard. I mean, he's destroyed for telling the truth, and he's now been exonerated by the facts, if anyone ever pays attention, that places where there weren't lockdowns did better than places that were locked down, that people who were not vaccinated did better than people who were vaccinated. I talked about this on the air the other day. There's the biggest worldwide study that was just published in the Journal of Immunology, written by doctors for doctors, says, if you got hospitalized with COVID, you were twice as likely to perish in the hospital if you were vaccinated versus unvaccinated. And that's just the data from worldwide. It's the biggest study ever done in the world. That's what this guy was talking about. And he's gone. Is there ever going to be an apology tour for what we did to ourselves or our government did to us over this COVID thing?
I don't know. We wish there could be. There ought to be. But Dr. Martin Kulldorff, or Martin Kulldorff, is of Swedish background himself. And he is notably one of the three authors of the Great Barrington Declaration. And this was a statement made by Martin Kulldorff, then at Harvard, Jay Bhattacharya out of Stanford, and Sunetra Gupta out of Oxford in England, in the UK. And basically, what the Great Barrington Declaration said early on, this is 2020, they said that the best policy would be to selectively protect with extra measures the most vulnerable. That would be the most elderly, those with, serious comorbidities, those immunologically compromised in some way of any age, protect them especially. But everybody else, go about your business just as Sweden did and showed how it's done. And for that Great Barrington Declaration, that was the start of it. They all spoke out and still do, those three co-authors. By the way, not just the three co-authors, they wrote it, but hundreds of thousands of people across the world signed onto it, including tens of thousands of medical personnel, including many, many, many doctors. But that was the beginning of the push to get these people discredited. A bunch of, what were they called? Fringe epidemiologists, I think maybe is what Fauci called them, to discredit them. And eventually, as we're seeing now, absolutely a travesty, pushing Martin Kulldorff out of Harvard.
Amazing and pathetic, because these are our health leaders that we follow like sheep as a country. And economically, the losses were in the trillions, and many people have still not recovered, and it's 2024.